Ow! Hello! New setup. I have a standing desk now. I have a new camera. It's actually an old camera that I just dug out. It's probably, like, I don't know if, like, it's better than, hopefully it's better than my phone. I got a new standing desk setup because I'm actually not moving out to Savannah for this quarter because, the world is ending. So I got this whole new setup that is optimized for my online learning experience. And because I'm home, I'm gonna have a lot more time to work on the new project that I'm working on. Yeah, I'm working on something new. I can't really go into it right now because of how early it is in the whole pre-production kind of phase. But that means that I've been doing a lot of writing, which is actually something that I really love to do. I've basically been writing since I was a little kid, so I've done a ton of writing in my time, my very short time on the earth. And so if any of you guys want to go into writing, storyboarding, whatever, I may not have a lot of the experience by myself, but I invited my friend Robert to come onto the channel and talk with me about writing, because he's also going to go into writing in college, and hopefully our combined writing experience will be helpful to anyone who wants to try it out themselves. Robert's a good friend of mine of the past few years, and we've written on many different things with each other, nothing that I don't think is on YouTube, so don't go looking for any of it. Let's not waste any more time. Let's jump right into it. Why don't you just introduce yourself?
Hi everyone, my name is Robert Nelson. I'm a college freshman earning my BFA in film production, and I am also an avid writer.
What are you working on right now?
Yeah, right now I am learning manual photography because one of my professors of film production at my school has told me that in order to be good with videography, you have to first know photography and know the basics of exposure and light geometry and everything like that, and how to compose a shot. So I've spent the summer studying that with this little baby.
No, I'm keeping that. That was good.
But in addition to that, as always, just a lot of writing by myself, different stuff. Short stories. I'm working on one long script right now, but I try to limit myself to one bigger project, and then everything else is kind of poems or ideas or just little things.
How's the script going?
It's going pretty well. I have had a slower time working on it recently just because of work and life and stuff. But I think when I get back into school, and I'll get a little bit more dead time kind of around classes, and I'll start to be able to fill it in again. I've just kind of been trying to brainstorm and take a step back and reevaluate where I want it to be headed.
What's your writing process like? I mean, like we worked on something together. We've worked on many things together.
Right. My writing process is, and this is the most cliche answer of all time, but it's different every time. But usually it starts with, I think of an idea that I have been wanting to write about, whether that is a character, not usually a character, but sometimes it's a character, but usually it's just like something. Like I haven't written about the future recently, or I haven't written about a lot of horror recently, or something like that, or hey, this would be really interesting, but it feels kind of similar to X, Y, and Z. What if I changed it with this? What if I fused these two ideas together? So it's a lot of self-serving, honestly. I just think of what I want to write about, or what I haven't written about recently and what I want to try again. And then I think of how I could make that into something that would be interesting to read or produce or, something.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, why would you write something you don't want to write?
Yeah, true.
When do you stop? When do you get to a point in which I'm not into this anymore? Do you keep going?
Yeah. Even like that's definitely the hardest part, and I didn't for a really long time, but starting a couple of years ago, when I hit a certain point, as long as I was past halfway, I just didn't let myself stop. Even if the end of it, I was forcing myself to do it. If I didn't enjoy it, if it wasn't as good as the rest of it, just being able to finish it, and not only just the action of finishing it and having it done and being like, yes, I got there, but then being able to come back to that finished work and tweak it more if I want to, instead of coming back to it and finding 3/4 of a draft. It's just like a world of difference.
What is the longest you work on something?
Without it being like work on it, give up, come back 3 years later, like one long work. I think it would be this script. I'm going on about 7 months right now.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Working on the same script because I've completely changed the basis of it like 3 times.
Mm.
Like the
So
main
that's just
character has always stayed the same and the setting has always remained the same, but like the plot and stuff like that has just completely shifted course. Because the first thing I thought of, I was like, oh, this would be really cool. And I started writing about it and I was like, I have no idea how I'm going to end this. There's no room for character development. So then I kind of just took the elements of that I liked and tried to work that into a plot line that would actually tell a story,
hmm
which is the biggest pitfall of using that. Like, this is something I want to write about. I personally, when I do that, often fail to think about, like, in the long run, how is this going to turn into a complete work?
So how early do you come up with your ending?
I try to have a general plot before I let myself write a scene. Like, I try to have a set in stone beginning, an idea of an end, but at least enough of an idea that if I wanted to sit down and write the whole thing right now, I know where I'm headed, and like 2 plot points in the middle, and then I go. So at least I have somewhere to end. You know, if all else fails, I know what direction things need to be going throughout the story, and what I need to be building to. So when there's a payoff, what the moral of the story is going to be, I have at least some kind of theme or continuity I can be working with.
Yeah, because I've worked on things that I didn't know what the end was, and
Yeah.
that's the longest thing I've worked on, which was like 4 years of the same thing, and I just didn't know what the ending was, because I didn't have an ending in mind, because it was like, oh yeah, well this would be cool to write about. For those you don't know, I tried writing a musical, and
Yeah. Yeah.
I wrote the first song that
Mhm.
night, which is
Which is
still like one of.
impressive because it's really good. I
Oh,
mean,
thank you.
want to do a reverse interview? I ask you some questions.
Oh, sure. Yeah, why not?
Okay.
Yeah, sure.
People should get to know you as a writer too.
Sure, why not? And
So
but
something I
sadly,
always,
yeah, sorry.
like, no, you're good.
No,
So
I was
like
just gonna
something,
say something.
so something I definitely always struggled with was characters, because like I would think of like how I wanted them to be, but not maybe necessarily who I wanted to be, if that makes sense. Like their traits or like kind of what energy they gave off, like dark and mysterious, so stuff like
hmm
that. But then I wouldn't necessarily appreciate when I was writing them, like this is going to sound really pretentious, but like the nuances of a human being, like the things that
Mm.
actually make a character who they are, like how they carry themselves and walk. Like, is there a way that you have to plan that, or does that just kind of come to you as you write?
This is something I learned from our theater teacher. You get to know your characters enough. You spend a lot of time getting to know them, who they are. Then when you come to the paper, they speak for themselves. And
Yeah.
I like to think of my writing as improv with myself.
Mhm.
I start off with like whatever characters I want in the scene, and they just yes and each other the entire time. And I mentioned this in a previous video in which I just use a timer, and I just do 30 minutes of just straight writing of just whatever the hell comes out with these two characters, and some sort of conflict, establish the characters' conflict, and then have it somehow be resolved in some way. Or I like the mindset of like your character wants something, and that by the end they either get it or they don't. And I think that what the character wants and then how the character acts, they're related. So if I know what they want, then I know
Mhm.
what kind of person would want that. How many people in my life do I know who are like that? I don't know. I spend a lot of time thinking about my characters as if they were people. I know of a thing that someone did. I read it somewhere. It was just all like, if your characters were all trapped in an elevator, how would they react?
That's interesting. Yeah, that's good. Also, a tip I would add that I learned pretty early on from a great writing teacher of mine in middle school was,
Mm.
and this is more applicable, I think, to scripts than narratives, but it's also
Mm-hmm.
helpful if you're trying to kind of form that idea of the character in your head, is always, for the way a character talks and what they say, base them off the voices of people you know in your life.
Oh yeah,
Because
definitely.
a pitfall of any writer, and one that I am guilty of to infinite extents, is having all your characters sound the same because the same writer is writing all of them. So
Mm-hmm.
like using little tricks like that to really distance them in your mind, like the elevator trick or the friends and family trick is what I call the other one,
Mm-hmm.
is super helpful to try to keep your characters separate until you know them well enough that they're really truly, like, you know, concretely their own people in your mind.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Since I was working on that musical for 4 years, I knew I knew who those characters were like really well. And
Hmm.
I think that you
Yeah.
don't know it very well the first time you go through it. Because I wrote like 4 versions of that script. this sounds dumb, but I get to know my characters as if they're real people,
Yeah,
and that will take time. And just
yeah.
having conversations with them a lot. I also like archetypes, just like really cliche archetypes to start
Mhm.
from. And I read
Yeah.
somewhere too that like use archetypes as the initial thing, but know that archetypes are the mask that they wear for who they actually are.
Another thing I would suggest if anyone who is watching this is, learning to write or trying to write more, or just an experienced writer even, that I use sometimes if I'm feeling really stuck or also just really don't know where to start, that they'll kind of tell you from elementary school is like, there's 1,000 sheets online of like the background of a character, starting with like, who are their parents? How old are they? Where did they grow up? What did they do as a kid? What sports did they play? What's their favorite food? And like, you don't think about it, but if you can sit down with one of those sheets and fill out the whole one on just a piece of printer paper in under like 3 minutes, you're good. And also, if you have to sit down and like really think about it, then you know that you still have more character development to do before you can really try to write that character. So like just kind of know yourself if you can, and know your knowledge of your characters before you try to write them, because writing characters you don't truly know is impossible.
For the musical that I was writing, I had a sheet in which I didn't just have what their favorite things. I have some of their core childhood memories in there, things that
Oh
happened to
wow.
them at school,
Yeah.
stories of what happened to them at school, and like, oh, one time he was playing dodgeball and this happened, or he used to be really into Rubik's cubes or
Mhm.
whatever, or like, oh, he has an uncle who lives here or whatever. Like it was just little stories that give mini stories that give these characters a little bit more of an understanding for me, and the people watching will never know it.
Also so helpful not only just to know your characters for your writing them, but that makes it so much easier to expand later. Like you don't think about it, but I watched an interview with the screenwriter who wrote this series called Prison Break, um,
Mm-hmm.
which is super good if you haven't seen it. Highly recommend it to anyone. It's very kind of heist movie like.
Oh,
But
of
as
course,
far
yeah.
as like the fourth season, they're still playing off of things they set up in the first season. And the interviewer was like, "That's so incredible. How'd you plan that?" And the writer was like, I didn't. He's like, I just set up my character so well, and I based it back so far in their childhood, and the actions and things they do in the first season build off of that. And because they're the same person in my mind, I can still build off of that in the fourth season, because at the end of the day, all those were based in the same memories or things that their mom and dad did, or whatever it was. Like it helps um, you as a writer so much to know your character, because that will last for as long as you have the ability to write that character. You have places to go. All right, I have another question.
Mm.
What is your, I'll call it pre-writing process? Like, what do you get done before you can sit and start to write out individual scenes?
Yeah, that's different for me every time, because every time I write something, I realize, oh, okay, I did something wrong in this early stage. I'll do
Mhm.
that differently this time. For the most recent thing that I'm writing, it was outlining, but not too much.
Got it.
Because one of the biggest things was that I would get stuck outlining. You know this, but they don't know this. But when we were high schoolers, they did this thing, the 24-hour plays. We were in the theater at, when did we get there? 10,
9 p.m. Yeah.
9 p.m. But we'd start writing at 10,
Hmm.
and then go all the way until 6 a.m. straight. The thing that really like was like hard for me in the first time was getting
Hmm.
out of outlining and just going. It was 10 a.m. and I think it was 10 a.m. Sorry, 10 p.m. and I had been outlining until midnight. And our theater teacher
Hmm.
comes in and she's all like, "So, what are you doing?" It's like, "I have a pretty good outline." She's like, "You haven't written anything," and I'm all like, "Nope." And that's where the timer thing came in, because it was just go. I'm just gonna figure it out in rewrites. I mean, the cliche is writing is rewriting, and
Hmm.
there's no good writers, but there's a lot of good editors.
Yeah.
So this time I have I think I have it here. Is it here that I did it? In my Hamilton notebook. I do the Dan Harmon story circle because I absolutely love it.
Hmm.
It's basically just your journey. Ignore that. You're just sketches. But so this is the entire story from beginning to end. A story circle for the entire thing, then a story circle for Act 1, a story circle for Act 2 leading into the midpoint, going from the midpoint to Act 3, and then Act 3 to the end. And some of them are just like, something bad happens. Solution to bad thing is found. Worst thing happens. I haven't figured that out yet. I'll get there.
Yeah.
How much am I willing to jot down before it becomes like paralyzing?
And I mean, the comment you made about rewriting is also true. The thing that took me so long to learn as a writer that I'm still kind of coming to grips with is that and no writer is ever going to write the perfect scene. You're never going to come back to a scene that you wrote once and not edit it. Mm-hmm. Even if it's changing where you put a comma all the way to just like completely just gutting it out and almost rewriting it, you're never not going to edit something. And that is like, I think the true fun or like artistic part of writing is coming back to something you've already written and making it, like turning it into what you created to what you want to create. Like all those little changes that build the story into your vision of it, into what you want the reader to experience or the watcher to experience or whatever it is, turning your characters into who you want them to be. That's like, I think the brunt of like what writing is to me. The whole like creation process really happens after the first draft, which is probably a bad way to look at it because that really cheapens the first draft, and the first draft
no, I honestly, I just want to get the first draft out of the way as fast as possible. Yeah. Like, I'm just all like, get it out there, send it to someone, make it bad. I want to make it bad. Like, that's something I found, I recently like learned. It's just all like, make it bad as soon as possible. Quantity over quality, baby. That's what you should take away from this video. Yeah. Everyone start writing 3-hour movies of nothing. Oh God. Everyone just go create The Irishman 2. Oh. That's not fair. That's a hot take. That's not fair. It's like 3.5 hours long. It's a mini-series. They should have made it a mini-series. I don't know. Martin Scorsese, though. That's true. He can do whatever he wants. He can do whatever he wants. He's earned that right. He can make a 2-hour movie of just like a dog walking around a coffee table, and I'd pay good money to see it. It was shot well. Yeah, I mean, the composition was just... It was amazing. The dog performed wonderfully. The dog's up for an Oscar. The Oscar. The coffee table is too. Supporting. Best supporting actor. Ooh, I've got, I think, one last tip for writing as well. That I use religiously. I invite anyone else to try if they want to. Aerosmith as a band, though, weekly used to have these things called Dare to Suck sessions, where they would all come in with 2 ideas that they thought were really bad and pitch them anyway. And 99% of the time they were really bad, but like that 1% of the time you get dude looks like a lady, which is now really offensive, but like really outlandish ideas that like work, you know? And I do that all the time. Probably I write a full 200-page notebook, front back of every page, every 3 months. At least half of every notebook is titled Dare to Suck Part 78 or whatever it is. And all of my just weirdest, craziest, most outlandish, least coherent ideas. And I'll be like, could I make that work? Almost every time the answer is no. Sometimes one of that time became the script I'm working on now. And like, that's really helpful. Like, let your creativity be super weird and super outlandish and not work at all. Because sometimes that pays off and it really helps you to not like constrict yourself and like auto filter out what you think are weird ideas, because sometimes those ones that your brain will immediately reject are the best ones. All right. Thanks for watching, and hopefully that was all somewhat helpful for you guys, if at all. If you're also an incoming college student who wants to get into writing, let me know. Like, you know, just hit me up. It's gonna be, we can have a grand old time talking about how scared we are about job security. Thank you, Robert, for coming onto the channel for this video. If you want to check him out, like I said, he has a YouTube channel that I'm gonna place the card up here. I think that's where it is. If not, I look stupid. Thank y'all for watching. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time.